What better way to start a video than with the bottom of an American? Well, this is my response to a video that is called 10 things Americans do that confuse the rest of the world. And the funny thing is, making such videos is one of the things. It is made by Americans for Americans and therefore it's very American. So I thought, well, I give you my perspective as an European to this video. So let's get it done.
What weird habits should Americans leave at home when traveling abroad? What physical feature do Europeans think Americans are far too obsessed with?
You have to remember that all Europeans are absolutely alike in this regards.
Find out in 10 things Americans do that confuse the rest of the world.
Number 10.
Price tags. If you are an American and have ever worked in a retail environment, you may have come across this scenario. A foreigner comes up to the register to pay and seems to be blindsided by the fact that you are asking them to pay a different price than what is on the tag. This is caused by the fact that most countries in the world include tax in the shelf price, whereas the United States doesn't. Many people have come to believe that this is just America being weird and overcomplicated, but there is solid reasoning behind the practice. In many countries throughout the world, all goods are sold with a standardized national sales tax that remains the same no matter wherever you shop. However, in the United States, every state has a different sales tax, and the states may even have different city and county sales taxes, depending on where you go. In fact, there are over 10,000 different tax jurisdictions in the United States. This combined with the fact that there are some things that have their own individual sales tax, like tobacco and alcohol.
Okay, stop here. We have the same thing. There are different tax rates for alcohol and tobacco and something to eat and books here over in the European Union. It's absolutely the same thing. And they will go on to say that it is about competitive reasons, that it looks like on the one side of the border it is more competitive than on the other side. We have the same thing in Europe. There are different tax laws in Europe and you can go from one place to another place, and a lot of places are closer to each other. A lot of nations in Europe are closer to each other than some counties in America. So we have the same thing and we can calculate it in and show it on the price tag. So yes, we see this a little bit as a scam for the customer, and we do not like that.
Number 9.
Driving. Many foreigners, especially those from Europe, who are used to living in a more densely populated place, with many options for public transportation, are shocked when they visit the United States and realize just how much driving Americans do. Because America is so spread out, and the fact that many large population centers are hundreds of miles apart from each other,
You have to understand that Europe itself is a populated area, so you do not have the opportunity to go for hours and hours and hours and not see a house. So the whole density is we are way more packed. So it makes sense that we have more public transport systems over here. It will take Americas another 200 years to be as populated and as dense as we are. And then you have the same thing, because then it makes physically sense to have this thing. One additional thing is that what really confuses us Europeans is that you let your 16-year-olds drive a car. This is quite interesting. We start to adopt it right now over here, but most of us are not comfortable with that. The other thing in driving with Americans is that this low maintenance idea of cars is quite shocking for us. You have to check your car every year. This is a law. So we do not have these rusty thingies driving around that do drive in America. This is of course a reduction in liberty, but it is absolutely an increase in safety. The whole thing that you do not have a public transport system is not that confusing as they made it sound here.
Number 8.
Vacation days. One of the most confusing things that people from other countries don't understand is how Americans are expected to work basically every day of the year. As far as first world or industrial countries go, the United States has one of the lowest amounts of government-sanctioned holidays, with the average worker receiving only 16 paid holiday and vacation days. Technically, there is no labor law in the United States that requires companies to give any vacation time at all.
Let me stop you right there and I tell you a story with from my company experience when I talk to Americans and they come over and say, come on, you do not work all the time. You have way less hours. You work way less days per year. Why can you outcompete us? And the reason for that is, well, we are relaxed. We have time to get down because when you work all day, all night, all year long, you are on an efficiency level of something of about 30% and lower. On the other hand, when you are forced to take vacation, you are relaxed again and you work on a higher efficiency rate. So this is something that normally not the Europeans confuse about the Americans, but the Americans are very confused about the Europeans, why we can still outcompete them in some ways, especially in high educated and high IQ levels, and still while having so many spare time. This is again something that the Americans confuse and not particularly the Europeans, because we know that you can work people into the ground. This is not all that hard.
Austria is known for having the most government-mandated holiday and vacation days, with 35 altogether.
Number 7.
Freedom food. Americans traveling abroad have often been found to find food sorely lacking in flavor compared to the food they are used to. And on the flip side, foreigners commonly have been astonished at just how much sugar and salt American foods have.
Again, let me stop you here. Americans are confused that not everything tastes only salty or sweet outside of their own borders, and we are confused that everything in America is either salty or sweet. This is the interesting thing. The rest of the world knows that there are more flavors than salt and sweet, and that's the whole thing. I would really emphasize on try to find out that there are other taste bumps on your tongue than those are responsible to tell you that something is sweet or salty. You will find a whole world of flavors and taste. You have to be brave to go outside of that and go outside of this two-party, two tastes mentality, but you can do that, and I will tell you, it is a wonderful world out there where there is more than salty and sweet.
Number 6.
Water weighs. Just because that fancy bottled water you buy says it was bottled in France, doesn't mean that the French are drinking it. In fact, it is incredibly rare to find anyone in Europe drinking bottled water in their homes, reserving their consumption for when they are on the go. Americans have been eschewing tap water for bottled water at a skyrocketing rate over the past 2 decades.
The interesting thing is that Americans think that when water comes out of the water system and it does not taste like chlorine out of a swimming pool, this is bad quality. The opposite is true in Europe. When you have something that is where there is chlorine inside, it is absolutely disgusting. But most of our water supply, especially in Austria, comes directly from the mountains. So we get this cool bottled water out of the water system, and it has a high quality, and our understanding of what is high quality is somewhat different than to that what Americans see as quality.
Number 5.
Hollywood Smile. Another place that foreigners think Americans are wasting water is at the dentist's office. While dental hygiene in other countries may not be as bad as it is stereotyped to be, like in England, they aren't quite as obsessed with attaining or maintaining the perfect smile in the way that Americans have. Where Americans have been known to spend thousands of dollars on braces and whitening procedures in order to get a pearly white Hollywood grill, many foreigners are content with crooked and discolored teeth as long as they aren't falling out or making them look like Nosferatu.
That's an interesting thing. It is not viewed as something that is disgraceful to have the teeth like nature gave it to you. They have to be clean and they have to be kind of white, but it is not important that they look like the smile of Brad Pitt. That's the thing. Europeans often see this as overconformity, that all Americans have the same the same smile. They all look the same. While we over here see this as in the same way as we see a scar. A scar tells a story and it is a part of personality. And the same is true to a degree with teeth. It is part of you. Of course, we change them, we adapt that. We also correct noses and things. And of course, you do that, and this is a little bit of a prestige thing, and you can show your wealth by my kids have perfect teeth. We do that, of course. It is a prestige thing, but it is not as important, and it is viewed a little bit as overconformity in America, that they want to look all the same.
Number 4.
Dining out. Tipping your server and taking home leftover food. 2 habits that are so ingrained in the American dining experience that they can be hard to kick. But rest assured, if you try to do these things outside of the US, you are sure to draw confused looks and reveal your stars and stripes. In most Asian and European countries, a service charge is either already included in your bill, or it is not customary to leave a tip. In many places,
Wrong. This is just wrong. It is based on the culture. The cultures are very, very different. Especially in Middle Europe, this is completely wrong. You tip your waiter, this is normal.
the other habit that can draw the scoffs of onlookers at a restaurant outside the United States is asking for a doggy bag or to-go box. In many countries, especially European ones, the idea of saving a hot meal at a restaurant in order to reheat it and eat it at home is a disgusting prospect.
True. That's absolutely true. It is absolutely true. The food is prepared for you and not prepared. It is not something that you buy in the supermarket, put in your microwave, and then eat it while watching a TV show. This is what we call culture.
Number 3.
Beverage customs. If you are an American and traveling overseas, don't expect to receive ice in your beverages. And if you are brazen enough to ask for some ice, be prepared for the, "Oh, you must be American" look.
That's true. We see this as a scam. When you have a beverage and you put a lot of ice in it, it means that you water down the beverage. And the other thing is that when you put a lot of ice in your beverage, you do not taste the beverage. If you do, I don't know, put ice in a good wine, you do not taste the wine. But as we have seen, since Americans only seem to taste sweet or salty, it does not matter all too much to them. But again, if you come to Europe and you taste a really good beverage, a really good juice of apples, a really good wine, do not put ice into that. It just numbs your taste buds on your tongue, and your tongue can do so much more than tell you that something is sweet or salty. Really, you should try that.
Number 2.
Alcohol laws. One of the things that confuses foreigners the most about Americans is our country's drinking age. Many countries have drinking ages, but to them, the idea of waiting until you are 21 is a bit extreme.
Based on that, again, we have to talk about culture here. The European culture is a culture of alcohol. Why is that? So, in the time long ago, when you drank water just how you found it somewhere in the well, you would die. The Asians came up with a good idea. They boil it up and make tea, so it is free from bacteria. What did the Europeans do? Well, we did put alcohol inside for the same reason. But what we mean with alcohol was pretty much in Roman times vinegar in the end, and it is for desinfection of the water. That's the whole thing. So alcohol is part of our culture because we did drink wine, but there was a very small amount of alcohol inside that because in the end alcohol was expensive. So this is a culture thing. In Rome, everybody did drink wine, although was more vinegar water than wine, but that's the thing. These traditions, these roots are very deep. On the other hand, American has a strong influence of, let's say, moral issues, and alcohol has this habit to make you act amoral. So that's the thing with the Americans, I guess, and their alcohol laws. They want that everybody works as moral as possible, while on the other hand, in Europe, alcohol is part of our culture, and this goes thousands of years back. And these things change very, very slowly. And our idea of alcohol is somewhat different of Americans, especially if we talk about beer. When Americans say, oh, they drink a six-pack in one term, yeah, try it with European beer. Good luck. I saw some American soldiers who tried that. It was a funny few with European beer, because our beer is a little bit stronger.
Number 1.
High school graduations. Americans have a habit of making an excuse to celebrate anything, and are known throughout the world for taking mundane events and pushing them to the extreme. This might be because Americans don't get enough paid vacation or holidays, but the point is, you'd be hard-pressed to find traditions like prom or homecoming anywhere outside the US.
I disagree there. I do not think that it is about sanctioned holidays and sanctioned vacations. It's again about culture. You have to remember that the time where every American had to fight nature just for survival is not so long past, while on the other hand, we do not do that way longer. So we had time to cultivate different cultures, different reasons to celebrate things, and a lot of this goes back to times before the Romans. A lot of Austrian traditions, what things we still do, are older than the Roman Empire. So I think it will take some 100, if not 1,000 years, that Americans start to have their own cultural reasons to celebrate. On the other hand, people want to celebrate, so they celebrate the things that are important for them right now. We Europeans, on the other hand, we have enough celebration reasons all around the year that we do not have to do that. To a degree, we mimic that, so high school graduations now become somewhat of a celebration, kind of, because we just imitate what the Americans do. But in the end, the reason is, I think that people want to celebrate things, and you have to give them reasons, and we have them already. On the other hand, Americans take these things over and then pervert it to a little degree, let's say St. Paddy's Day or something in this regards, and they try to do the same thing. They try to build a culture, and I think they will succeed in building up this culture. So if you want to see the whole video uncut, I post a link in the description. I hope I could give you some insights from a European perspective, and wish you a wonderful day.